friends and welcome. I'm Christine. I appreciate you guys watching. This is my IOD overload part 1, and I'm going to be using a bunch of different IOD products, not just Christmas, but I'm pulling out the frames mold, but I am going to be using the new LUXE mold, and I'm not going to show you making the resin because I think my resin was old or something. I think I left it out. But anyhow, I struggled with that, so I'm not going to show you me making the process of that. But I'm just scanning through some items that I am going to be using. And then we're going to be flipping these products here just shortly. And again, this is part 1. Watch all the way to the end because that's when I'll show you what the makeover products look like in the end. So the first one here, this is the LUXE. And again, I'm not showing you. And I've got 2 of those. My other one's messed up, but anyhow, I got 2 of these. So I'm gonna pull out from the Yuletide booklet this pretty little wreath, and I am going to put that on one of these. So I'm not going to show you all of me doing the transfer and all. You guys, if you don't know how to do transfers, we'll kind of go through that another time in depth. So I'm going to be speeding this up shortly, but I'm going to lay my transfer down where I want it. And then I'm just going to take my little transfer tool and burnish that down. And then I'm going to take the paper itself, flip it over, and help lay that in there. And of course, you do want to seal these good after the fact. But I liked the idea of doing the clear resin, and you're going to see why in a minute. And of course, using air dry clay would be beautiful, or just using the amazing resin, the quick set resin would be perfect, but it is white, so you're going to have to paint it or do something with it. So I love the clear. You can see through it. I just think it is gorgeous. So all of these projects for this part 1, we're pulling out Rub and Buff. I love this stuff. Why? Because I've had this tube forever, you guys, and I've used it. It goes a long ways. But it also adds such depth to your projects, and it just looks rich. That gold and that Rub and Buff, that's a hard effect to duplicate. It just looks rich, so it makes any project that you put it on just feel luxurious. So I am going to detail the little top part there and the bottom, and you guys, so pretty of an ornament. The other one, I'm just going to do Rub and Buff. I'm not adding anything else to it, but pulling out the details of it, and you'll see those in a minute. And then in the end, I'm just going to take some green velvet ribbon. You could use red, whatever, but this is the skinniest ribbon I have. I just ordered it off of Amazon. I'll try to link that below for you guys. But I'm just going to hot glue that to the back. And then what beautiful ornaments. So I'm just going to let you guys sit here and watch for a little bit. Our next project, I've got a frame that I'm going to be reusing, and I took off the back, and I've got the glass to the side too. And I'm coming in with the frames mold and made that largest frame out of my clear resin. And what I'm going to do is, because it was a little wide, but there's this rim there, so yeah, I know this looks a little sketchy, doesn't it? So I'm taking my X-Acto knife and I am going to take off that rim. And then I found that using your little finger sander or some sandpaper will take that resin off as well, and then it smooths it out in the end. So I did not cut myself. I'm going away from myself, but I did need to get that out because you see that frame's got a little bit detail around the inside. I want most of that to be seen when I put the mold on there. So I am going to use a combination of my Quick and Thick from Titebond and hot glue, and that is how I'm going to secure that frame on top of that. And then I let that dry for a good little bit, and then I'm going to start painting the whole thing with some black chalk paint. Okay, and we're using hot glue just to get that permanent hold. And the reason why, normally I would not with my resin molds, I would just use the Titebond Quick and Thick, but it's a glossy surface. I haven't really prepared it other than just cleaning it up real well, so I want it to hold immediately. So that's why I'm using the hot glue, and because it's not a flat surface that I'm gluing it to, so I figured better just stay secure. Now I'm just painting the inside of that little cardboard piece. I'm painting that black as well. Now I could have cut out a separate little cardboard or a paper to use, but I'm just using the little piece that was in there as a backing. I'm just using that, and I'm going to put my transfer on it directly, other than put my transfer on something else. So I'm just gonna I just did one good coat of the chalk paint. That gave me enough coverage. You can kind of see that reddish brown underneath, but I didn't mind that tone so much. So I'm just covering everything real well, and I did have to come back with a fine little smaller little art brush and touch up some on that resin. You'll think you'll have it covered, and then you'll find when paint dries that yeah, it's not quite covered. So I did come back and pick some detail out of that. I'm back in that Yuletide transfer booklet because there's such adorable items in here, and they're usually smaller. So look at this little rabbit. He's so cute. Now, I don't normally do a black background to my transfers, but this just made him pop that much more. So I'm just going to lay him down, and then I am going to come in, yes, with Rub and Buff. That frames mold and the frame itself. You remember the frame itself had some detail as well. So I'm going to take a small little brush and I'm going to bring out the detail in both. Now, when you use your resin molds to frame something, this is weird to frame a frame, right? But it looks like it was made to go there. And then you kind of get this two-dimensional, three-dimensional effect going on because it's raised up a little more. I just think it's so stinking pretty. And that black with that gold,
That is just so, again, it's just so lush, so luxurious, right? Not really the style I'm going for this Christmas. I have done my trees in the past and my house more of a luxury feel, that traditional black and gold kind of feel. Not so much this year, but I think this might go in my booth, or it might just wait in my attic for when I'm feeling it again in the future. Alright, so when I pulled out my frames mold, as I usually do when I pull out my molds, I go ahead and mix enough resin to make pretty much everything that's in the mold. It just makes it easier. These IOD molds, by the way, have measurements on them so that when you measure your resin, if you just want to make one or two molds, you've got measurements on them. So that is genius to me. So all the rest of the little frames that I've made, I'm just going to make those into ornaments. So I'm going to paint them all this nice little, I think this is cottage white, but I'm going to do two coats just on the sides and the front pieces only. I'm not worried about the back because it's clear resin, so it gives the appearance of the chalk paint on the back as well without having to take that time to do that. Pulling out again the Yuletide, you can't go wrong. If I don't know if any of these transfers are still available, but this booklet, you cannot go wrong with it. There is so much in there that you can use, and I'm just using scrap pieces, y'all. So what you might would have just set to the side or not used at all, maybe, that's what fits perfectly into these little frames. So I'm just going to put a different one in each frame. Then I'm coming back with a rubbing buff, and on two of them I'm pretty much going to go all the way around them because it's got like that filigree, so I'm going to use those.
And on the other two, it's just very detailed, one around the edges and then one at the top and the bottom, and I'm just pulling out those very, very little detailed spots and leaving the other just the chalk paint there. So I'm going to let you guys just enjoy the rest of this. I'm going to speed it up a little bit, and I've realized I have my pajama pants on while I'm filming. I hate you guys can see that, but me and all my glory. Our last project, and thank you for sticking in there with me. So we've got this little, I guess this is this little ceramic ornament from Hobby Lobby. So I am going to paint it with, this is a moss green, so it's just a pretty muted Christmas green, I would call it. I'm going to take that little top off. I will reuse that, but I'm going to replace that ribbon probably with that velvet green ribbon again. So I'm just going to do a real good coat with this chalk paint. And then, I don't know why I have my transfer booklet there. I am not going to do a transfer. I'm going to do something totally different. I am going to go back into my frames mold. But I like the detail of that little mold, but I only want that little detail, if that makes sense. So I'm not doing the whole mold. I'm just doing part of it. So I'm taking my DOS air dry clay. I kind of roll it out into like a snake figure. It just helps to get up in all those little crevices. I use my fingers and my little art palette knife to place that in there. So this was a little difficult because I'm not going all the way out and filling the whole project. I'm just doing part of it. So I felt like it kind of had like a beveled look to it, or not quite a straight back on it, but it still worked perfect for my project. So I did not put my cornstarch in my mold, y'all. It did come out, but I was working too fast, and then by the time I realized, I was like, I didn't got all this clay in here. So it did come out, but make sure to put your cornstarch in the mold. So I had to make 2 of these. So on my second one, yes, I did do my cornstarch. So I'm going to put that out, and then I'm just going to cut the sections, and I'm going to go around with my Tight Bond Quick and Thick, because that is always what I use for these molds with my clay. And I'm going to put that around that ornament. Rub and buff again. I'm just going to bring up all of the mold with the rub and buff. So I left the ornament itself the green, and then did the detail of the molding with my rub and buff. And then that project is finished. I didn't want to mess with it anymore. I left the top painted the same gold that it came in, and then just put in that pretty little ribbon. And we're done. Thank you guys for sticking with me. I hope you liked this, and there is a part 2 coming out. There were just too many for me to get out all at one time, so stick in for a couple of days, 4 days or so. I'll have the other one up as well. Thank you, you guys. I appreciate it. Y'all are awesome.